think I'd like to get rolling with what if we're to be so bold as to call it the formal proceedings. It's going to be pretty informal. It's more of a chat about the training, but we'll get that going by or before 7:05. So we'll just try and get everybody in here, maybe establish some ground rules so we can do this effectively. And yeah, we'll figure things out. Oh, there's a few more.
Oh, there's Andy. He's just not on the. There's these are all the people that you hear about.
Hi, Marie.
Oh, you can wave. I just muted her. I'm just because I'm going to start things up here. Sorry, Murray. A few more. I'm just going to keep one eye on the door, and yeah, for everybody that's here right on schedule, let's get things rolling. Thanks everybody. Welcome to the Zoom version of Intro and Orientation to the Season. It's a meeting that will be short on pyrotechnics and hopefully long on common sense, but not long. I mean, just long on common sense. Yeah, as you said, it's going to be busy here for the next couple of minutes as I keep letting people in. So I'll be distracted, but during that distraction, maybe we'll set some ground rules. Of course, I really appreciate you guys all taking this time out of your busy evenings. We will keep things moving along so that you can get right back to whatever it is you're up to by either 7:40, 7:45, or as soon as you have to go. That's fine. But yeah, you know, I hope you take away some kernels of truth and pearls of wisdom, if I may be so bold, to apply to your training in the forthcoming months ahead. With a big group like this, as I said, if everybody shows up, it'll be about 60 registered. We need some rules of engagement. So I think what we'll do is ask everybody to default mute for now, just to avoid background noise and chitter chatter, but I will give everybody a chance to chip in. But yeah, default mute for now. And with a packed agenda here, so it's going to be a primarily one-sided Zoom, and I apologize in advance for that. Sorry about it. But having said that, I do want to hear from every one of you in one way, shape, or form, or one of two ways, I guess. Either open up that chat box, and if you have questions ahead of time, good time to put them in there before anybody forgets them. If you have questions that pop up, good time to ask them. So just fill the chat box with whatever you can in the questions and comments. And we'll try and get back, we'll try and get to as many of them as we can, but any we don't, I promise individually, I'll get back to one by one, everybody we can. And I think what we'll do is there's like 3 segments. So at the end of every segment, I will ask if someone has a question, a burning question that they not only they think is pertinent to them, but might be, you know, a more general question. But others may appreciate hearing, have the same question, appearing and appreciate the answer. So yeah, then you can unmute, ask your question. We'll find you here and ask that one and move on to the next one. And just for your benefit, and especially those more specifically that aren't here, which is a bigger group than even that are, I'm recording the session. So hopefully with my son's help, he'll edit it a little bit and put together a Zoom that we put on YouTube for later viewing or review for you guys. So that's, or, you know, so don't feel compelled to take notes unless that's your jam and you really like to do that. Okay, sound good? All right, thumbs up. So one last check at the front door here. I think I got everybody there. Yeah, let's cover some ground on a few topics, principally and originally the whole training plan, the whole training plan and the VDOT platform, how to interpret, use, you know, get the most out of what is a pretty robust system once you know how it all comes together. So yeah, I think the best place to start is a quick review, or at least use that as our discussion guideline of that intro letter that I probably sent just about every one of you to start to intro your plan and let you know it's on VDOT. So we'll quickly go through that. And that if that cues any questions along the way, please put them in the chat box here. Just want to make sure. Yeah, there it is. It's all working. I'm a little rusty on Zoom. It's we used to do these 2 or 3 times a week a couple of years ago, and then a little less, and then a little less. Now we're down. I haven't done one in I don't know how many months. So bear with me. We'll figure it out as we go. So yeah, number one, when we sent that to most of you, I think there's only 5 or 6 of you in total that don't yet have plans. I'm still working on a few, late starters, I guess you could say, but everybody else should have their plans. And by now, you might be a week in, a few days, a couple of weeks, or have used them before. So we're all at different levels of familiarity and understanding. But I'll go through the list just to make sure we cover all our bases. Make sure that you don't gloss over the glossary. There's a link in there. Make sure you try and read through that briefly and get a feeling for what we mean by the philosophy and vernacular and principles of the training system that we're using. That's always a good reminder. And then I guess number 2, a reminder to use the VDOT training plan only as much and in a way as you're comfortable. Okay. Most runners, I guess like myself, prefer to use it as an online training plan, like front end loaded to get your training, but not as the training log. Okay. And certainly in the last year and a half that we've had experience using it, I found that as a training plan tool, it's amazing. But as a training log, there are complications. There are aspects of it that make it problematic for recording and assessing and reviewing training. So my recommend, as you might have heard already, is to use one of the other online training platforms that we're all probably familiar with, largely probably Strava. They say 80% plus of people are on Strava here that we're working with. Maybe Garmin Connect, another 15% or so are on that. But one of those 2 probably covers most of the bases. And that's probably the best place to do the training log analyzing and review and recording. But up front, the VDOT system is terrific in terms of and what it can do for that side of it. So yeah, I'll give you more on the training log side shortly, but I did want to make sure you consider any notes you make in VDOT in the actual training log. If you make them, just consider them private. Consider that I probably will never see them unless you direct me to them in an email or whatnot, like with a specific entry.
Why are we even using that fucking thing?
I'm not, just making sure everybody mutes up. There we go. So make sure, yeah, if you do use the VDOT training log, that any notes you do, they're for your eyes only. That's probably the best way to think of it. The best place to leave your notes is probably Strava or Garmin Connect, and best yet, especially if you're a Virtuous e-coaching runner, in the email that you send me, and then you can reference to those. Okay, so just a caution on that, because I do see hundreds of notifications pop up on the training log side of VDOT. So that's for your own eyes only. And then some of you even enjoy a bit more technologically robust relationship with VDOT and your Garmin, where you link it all together and have the Garmin work with you real time on your runs. It's not for me, but it is for a number of the runners I know that I coach, and that's fine. So yeah, you can take it that far if you so choose. If you haven't yet, just know that you can. Just a matter of linking up your Garmin and your Strava and your VDOT all together, and then you can have a run buddy on the way, I guess. One aspect I am keen to try, which I haven't, and I promise to, is use that in a fartlek run. The ones where you're, 1 minute in, 2 minutes, 3 minutes out, 1 minute hard, 2 minutes, 3 minutes relaxed, or some version of that. Just because then you're, especially in the winter, you're not having to hit buttons and that kind of thing. It's all programmed when you've got 5 big layers of gloves on and such. So it might be a good thing for a fartlek run for me and for some other technological troglodytes. But yeah, just an idea for that. But otherwise, I like to run it manually with Garmin. Hold on, I'm just letting more in. So number 3, I wanted to make sure you knew to read the notes, best done on the computer or laptop, I think, at least the first blush, of some of those quality workouts, which are the green dot workouts in your plans, because there's there's a lot. I'm just going to add a couple more here. They're popping in, and make sure we're muted, everybody. There's a lot in there to describe work, especially if it's you're just getting going, either with the plan or with Marathon Dynamics or with a new type of workout that looks a little different. Always go down to the bottom where the notes are and make sure you're getting some of the nuances of how best to apply it. Not that there's always big notes there, but sometimes there are. So that's a good thing. I wanted to draw your attention to that. More of the details on how to do them, because they're not always visible on the app on the phone. And then the biggie workouts, the ones that kind of drive 90% of your training improvement, are like your intensity workouts, your threshold, we call them OMPs, ordinary mortal pace, and of course your long runs and race pace workouts for most of us on the weekend. Those ones are in there, and those are definitely ones you want to take a look at the notes for. So plan your week around those anchor workouts. Okay. Totem pole them, like they're high on the totem pole of priority. And then you move them around if you need to, and you move everything else around at their behest to make sure that they get done as best you can in terms of other recommended runs or rest days, cross training, strength training. Move it where it needs to go, but you want to place priority on the big three if you're moving things around yourself. A very important aspect, the number 5 of the 9, has to do with your VDOT score. And that's kind of a logarithm of potential current and future of your current speed and paces that that the system, or we use the system to establish the various paces for all your workouts in your training plan. It's based on a host of factors, from beginning of season speed as demonstrated or estimated, to considerations of past, perhaps long ago, but more likely recent race performances, and also with another one eye on where you want to go this season, the future, near future performance goals and race times, things like that, if that's your jam, to arrive at this theoretical current VDOT value. Very important, and I haven't been reminding people enough. I took an incident to remind you, don't independently adjust your own VDOT, okay, without consultation, without going, I think it needs adjustment. Maybe I should check in with coach and see, and here's why. And so we collaboratively, collectively, we can decide to change it, because we will, and we'll do it as frequently as we can and as often as you like, as long as it's warranted. Okay, so don't independently change it just because of where you want to get to or the level you want to get to. The training will get us there, likelihood. So we just want to make sure we're on the same page. So when you feel it's necessary, and it should be based on not, well, here's what it should be based on: 3 things, three possibilities, 3 factors. A mid-season race result, which may start coming up soon with Robbie Burns and I guess the Chile half and things not too far away. So a mid-season race result can be a very direct way to change your VDOT and therefore readjust all your training paces as we go. If that's not on the agenda, you're not doing them, or you can't make them, a solo time trial. I think I even put a couple in most plans, about a 5K trial here and there. So on a good fair day or good conditions, if you rock an individual time trial, that's one way to do it as well. And then finally, if neither of those are work for you, or you don't do those, we can look at your race pace runs, especially as they get longer and later into the season. The second half of your race pace runs are worth evaluation and somewhat indicative of underlying potential at that distance that you're training for, half marathon for most cases for us. So I can look at that if at your behest after we do race pace runs, or you do them on your own, hopefully do them with us, and that becomes another third way to adjust upward or downward. I mean, faster or slower. It can go both ways. Obviously, we mostly or usually want to go one of those 2 ways. But yeah, it's more about getting it right at the right time. It's not just because you beat up on your workouts. If you go and you're clobbering this workout or you're clobbering that because you choose to and can, you should be able to, but you shouldn't always do it. And so that's where you get into trouble with trying to just beat your plan and see if you can update your VDOT preemptively. Okay, so be careful with that, but I'm more than eager, very eager to do that. We just need to satisfy some of those prerequisites along the way, and we'll do it right away. Number 6, unlike our previous system, it bears reminding that that was kind of a leading indicator approach where we anticipated fitness gains and built it into the plan ahead of time and assumed you were successfully doing the workouts unless we heard otherwise. This is the new system, or not new now for most, but our system now is a lagging indicator approach, meaning that the training paces of your various workouts stay fixed as the training goes on, unless and until we collaboratively, like I mentioned, decide you're clearly fitter or less fit, perhaps, than your plan as the training progresses. Okay, so let us know during the coming weeks or months if you think upshifting or perhaps downshifting your VDOT is appropriate, and we'll do some homework and do so. Okay. Quick note too that as of just after Christmas, all newly created customized training plans on the system should have, in almost every case, I think, all your key workouts and some non-key workouts all labeled appropriately. You know, it's been the evolution of the system, so now you can very clearly see what workout is what, and right from the title. And I also since then have been trying to move everybody's workouts, the key ones, around to as per your suggestion or desire, so they fit where you're most likely to do them. Obviously, they may change independently, individually. But yeah, I decided to try and do that because VDOT still doesn't allow us to do that at the input side up front. So yeah, it's kind of been just a bit of a project. As for rearranging your training weeks, I've been taking each run of each week of each runner of each plan and moving that all around so that it works for you. So belated Merry Christmas for that. I'm hoping VDOT and us can get that done on the front end. But yeah, so it all should be defaulted fairly close to what you had indicated you like, at least for the big 3, your intensity, your OMPs, and your long runs. So having said that, they're in place. It's still a great idea. Once a week, 5 or 10 minutes at about the same time each week. So there's a kind of a 1 week unit at a time evaluation. Sit down and look at how I did last week. And any lessons I can pick out of the training based on what I see. Look at next week, sort of get a preview so you don't get shocked ahead of time about, oh my God, that's a tough workout, or oh, I can't do that because of this or that today, and I end up missing a key workout. So scan ahead, see if you need to move anything around to accommodate your schedule and the rest of life, usually that kind of thing. Or it could be health, sickness, a bit of an injury niggle, whatever the reason, move things around for the new line of best fit and give it a go. The one thing too, you can move your key workouts around. Just don't break one of the cardinal rules of distance run training. Try not to bookend or back to back those key ones like intensity OMP or OMP and long runs. They should have a day buffer. Doesn't really matter what the buffer is. Could be a complete day off, an easy run day, a cross training day, or one of these other like a fartlek type run or any number of other medium to low effort runs. But you shouldn't, ideally, you'll get away with it once or twice early in the season if you need to, but don't make a habit of bookending those back to back. And in the same breath, do make an effort to never try and break up your P1-2 punch. That's that one that comes up at least once a month, sometimes, or about that, once every 4 weeks, sometimes 3 to 4 weeks. And those P1-2 punch are labeled as such because they're a unit. They're to be done together. And if you do move it within the week, move them both. If you do move it to another week, move the P1 with the P2, the progression run with the setup, that sort of run that tires you out before you get out for it. So yeah, just keep those as a unit if you're moving them independently. Okay, it's just a quick tip. And of course, if you're a virtuous e-coaching, like where we don't see you every week and at workouts, this is obviously the best time when you're doing that to drop your email for your training update on training, the training plan, or training related, anything related to your training at that point. So yeah, quick point, not that it applies to too many people these days. I find less and less over the years, but if you are someone who is keen to or has always loved using heart rate in your training, VDOT doesn't have the capability to conveniently accurately put it all together and include it. However, we've always had that in our old system. So I'm happy for anybody that really is keen to do that to sort of back end, create what we used to call a max heart rate equivalency chart that lines up all your heart rates with your corresponding workouts. But I'll do that gladly for you. But the only condition I'm asking is that it's a tested max, not a age calculated off the packaging of your polar heart rate monitor or whatnot. It's got to be a tested max, and then we can discuss further if needed on how to do that. But if we do get an accurate heart rate for you, because it's usually different than those formulas, then we can line it up and explain further how to use it. Okay, so that's just the heart rate deal. Let me know by email or whatnot if you are in that camp and want that final element of triangulating your accuracy of workouts. And maybe lastly, number 9, remember that the paces and the distances prescribed in your plan, they're set assuming ideal conditions, which we for the most part had, curiously enough, for a few weeks now, pretty much or close to it, which is unusual. It's not going to last. I'm mentioning that now because it's going to change. But and that refers both to external conditions, moderate temps, flat course, good footing, low wind, etc. But also internal conditions, you being healthy and rested and well hydrated and fueled. To the degree that that's not the case, internal or external, you should adjust accordingly, and usually more conservative, slow down or shorten. We've created tools to help you accurately do that with external conditions, and there was a link to that in the intro letter that I sent with your plan, so that should be there. Or if you need it to resend, just let me know. As far as hot, humid days, not a problem now, or more likely footing, winter footing and that kind of thing, or terrible cold and wind chill. So we can adjust based on that. But with respect to other aspects, whether it be the hilliness or the windiness of the course, or internal sickness and borderline injury that you might be managing around, that's going to be either a day-to-day decision for you to manage and adjust accordingly, or in conjunction with your coach, to decide what we do. But yeah, that's just a quick rider on that. And also that there's ranges. When you see these paces, especially ones that are pretty exact, understand that there is no magic in exactly that pace. It's a rough target, plus or minus. There are average, even when the conditions are perfect. Okay, so I'm talking about, first I mentioned about adjusting to non-optimal conditions, but even when everything's perfect, there's still a range. Okay, so for shorter, faster runs, there's a ballpark 5 or 6 seconds per K, plus or minus, you're fine. You're right in the zone. Don't sweat it. For longer, slower runs, it could be 10 or 15 seconds, plus or minus on either side. You're fine. Stay in that range. Make it as easy as you can, essentially, while you're still hitting that system. So yeah, those are some of the reminders, 1 through 9, on how to kind of, take stock and use your plan constructively. I did put a PS there. I'm not going to spend much time on it other than to make sure you do go back and read up on it. Has to do with the fact that, especially as you gain experience, or I guess you're one of these injury-proof runners that can add volume quickly, or you're really hard driving for a big goal. The plan we've given you should get you minimally there. It's like a scaffold, or just a sort of a minimum skeleton to get you there. The encouraged option is add to it if and when the going's good. So there's that give 110% philosophy that we alluded to, where on your big runs, if you can add 10%, 1K to a 10K, 2 or 3K to a 20 to 25 or 30K, and go ahead and add that discretionary volume in the moment, because likely somewhere you're going to need to call the shot and pull back. So it's nice to kind of be bargaining over and above so that you stay on track on overall. So yeah, adding discretionarily through that way. There's other ways to do it too. Quickly, you could turn your aerobic cross training sessions, if there's 1 or 2 sometimes of those in the week, to easy runs. Very easy. I'll tell you how easy. Of roughly the same time, or less if that suits. Jiggity jog of the running health insurance also counts as volume to your training. Not so much the power walks, if that's how you do it. If I have to remind you about what running health insurance is, that's another discussion. We should either check the video. I don't have time to review it all here, but that's that thing you see at the bottom of 6 of your 7 days of the week. And there's an enormously powerful reason to do it. I won't get into convincing you how or why now, but just know that if you do it, it will fundamentally change the trajectory of your future running performance, compounded week by month, year by year. So a hearty recommendation to adopt and embrace running health insurance. And if you do, I actually do mostly walking, but some like to do the jiggity jog thing. It's a little more time effective in some ways, I guess, and it's more running based. Then you can count that mileage. You can add volume to your easy runs. That's another good place to do it. Instead of a 5 or 6 or 8K, maybe it's an 8 or 10 or 12K. Those kinds of things. And occasionally, not regularly and not always, but not even somewhat most of the time, but occasionally replacing the odd, I think they're orange dots, the true recovery days, the days off. You can maybe fill in on a recovery when all systems are go to add. And in that way, you could add, in some cases, we have runners adding 25, 30, maybe even 30 plus K in any given week to their baseline training. So that's just, I just want to put that out there, you know, and it might happen season by season as you go. We add more. Certainly that's how it's kind of grown with runners of experience. So as they did. So is that okay? Add any questions you've got into the chat box on that. Or if you have one that you think, yeah, you know, I have this question and others might too, you can unmute and ask away. I'll give you the opportunity. Give me a chance to catch my breath and drink a coffee. Anybody have a question on that's, you know, always been bothering them, wondering? Oh, yeah. Oh, good. I got a question here. Is that Kelly?
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Kel. What does SOMP?
It looks like there's some new work. Like, so I've always worked off the paper.
Oh yeah,
workout.
the old school version. So yeah, a
so
lot of these are new, right?
Yeah, so I'm new to VDOT and I just wasn't sure what some
Yeah.
of that means. So
in most cases, what that'll mean is your standard flat course OMP would be OMP pace. It wouldn't have that S to it. The S would be the slightly slower OMP.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
it's almost always in reference, not always, almost always in reference to a hilly. If you look down, it's
okay.
a hilly OMP. So
Okay.
that's what that references. It allows to give you the same effort, but on a hilly course. And you'll see that's why it slows it down 10, 15 seconds a K in most cases, depending on how hilly it is. Does that help?
Yep. And then RP.
Oh, probably race pace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, race pace, because in some context, I would use that as an abbreviation. So yeah, cool.
And then lastly, sometimes so I run with an Apple Watch and sometimes it converts to Strava and sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
So do I just go in and just manually enter that into Strava with my notes and then?
Yeah, if you're saying so it's sporadic, it sometimes does a good job.
It usually does. Like today I ran and I went into Strava and it says 0 kilometers. It tracked it all on my watch, but yeah, it's weird. So I don't know, maybe I'll give it a day and see if maybe it's just a glitch in the update, but
be a glitch. I know with Apple, this goes to all Apple Watch users, aside from that potential technical true glitch, I haven't heard that one. There's a regular differential with the Apple Watches in that it's often 15 or 20 seconds per K. It's telling you you're going 15 or 20 seconds per K faster than you usually are.
Oh, okay.
I don't hate to burst some bubbles.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
We've found this out over the last couple of years through iteration. So just something to keep in mind that might be happening. You could always corroborate it, you know, with outside on a measured course. But yeah, I'm not sure about the technical glitch on the not registering. I guess, yeah, if it doesn't register, you can go ahead and do a manual entry on Strava or Garmin Connect just to make sure your log is up to date.
Yeah.
Go from there. Okay.
I'm
going to move it along quick just so we can keep rolling here. I'm going to give you the best workout and training log practices. It's kind of another way to call it would be Coach Kev's recommends and wish list, so that it makes it easier for us to speak the same language and compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Title your run workouts on Strava or Garmin Connect with using MDI vernacular. So, you know, we know because you may move things around or do things on different days, makes it so much easier than trying to deduce what run that was in your schedule. So if you can go back, just quick edit and title it Hilly OMP or Fartlek or, you know, LSD, regular LSD or race pace, P1, 2 punch. label it with what the input with the output. That would be very helpful, and to both of us really in review. I recommend too that if you're on Strava, join the MDI Strava group. There's a lot of good, banter on there, and it's motivating if you're good with that. I know some people get caught up negatively in the social media side of Strava, but I think it can be pretty constructively managed. And as far as worried about, you can set your account, your levels of privacy, you can hide your start and finish as far as that goes on you as a default on your run. So you can keep it pretty private if you want, but you can also, be a part of that community because there's lots happening that's kind of motivating from each other. Make short subjective notes in your description. Maybe not for every run, but run of the mill ones, but for the biggies or the more important runs, lend some subjective, or conditions, or speak to the run. Give us some sense of what's going on, especially if there were, an injury issue or a circumstance, or just how you were feeling, because that will over time lend, context to the efforts you're giving. So that helps. Oh, and very importantly, when you see a warm up in relation to a workout or an OMP or a race pace, whenever you see a warm up and maybe less frequently a cool down, treat all of those, make them separate runs on when you record them. Start, stop, I've done my warm up. Start, stop, I've done my workout. Start, stop, I've done my cool down. If you separate them into 3 runs, really what I'm doing is editing out the warm up and cool down so that the workout portion can be analyzed without having to do a lot of deductive math to pull out and figure out averaging in that. And it just makes it crisper and cleaner, and we can see what you were doing. Okay. So yeah, 1 run file for the workout portion, and I guess 1 for the warm up and cool down. And in that 1 for the workout, get familiar with most Garmin's, I think it is, and probably most other watches, with your split lap button. Okay. There should be, even if you're doing lots of reps on hills or intervals or tempo versions with sets of distances, there should be lots of stops and starts and rests and run bouts, but 1 file, and all managed. Once you press start, the first to start the beginning run, after that you just use the split and lap button as to signify a stop or a change of pace or a rest break, and then press it again, the same button to start again, and stop and start. Then we have the whole run cataloged neatly to evaluate later, and we can monitor your rest breaks. We can see how your pacing was, rep by rep, hill by hill, such. So it's really convenient if you can get that whole workout in 1 workout file. Okay, and I can show you, I can send you references from my account and others to show you what we mean. But yeah, learning how to use that split function is a very good thing. Couple quick notes, because we haven't needed them very much, but treadmills are a growing, I would say, thing for runners in the last, well, especially 3 years, especially a couple of years ago. But treadmills, as we turn to them, either because we have no other option sometimes, we feel, or because we actually don't mind it, there's some caveats there quickly. More of us will be doing it. It's okay to do it. It's not, an anathema or whatever it is. It's good. Go ahead and do it. Once or twice a week is probably a good max. Wouldn't do all of your running or most of your running on a treadmill, if at all possible. Okay, in general, long term, because you lose touch with the real running, and there's some other drawbacks as well. One thing is hills. Of course, you generally don't have hills on treadmills unless you make them by contrivedly putting in a big uphill every once in a while. But then, of course, you never get the downhill payback when you do that. So it skews the effort and is somewhat unrealistic, unless you have one of those $20,000 Woodway treadmills, which also can do downhills and uphills. But I'm guessing that's not in everyone's basement right now. So a little bit of a caution on using treadmills too much, but definitely, in fact, I'll go so far to say I recommend everyone have access to a treadmill. Not necessarily that they have one themselves in the basement, but that you have, even if it doesn't have to be like an annual fitness club membership, if that's not what you're into. It may already be, but if not, I'm talking about like 2 or 3 month pay as you go, 1 month at a time at a hopefully you've got not too far away one of these, hey, what are they, Planet Fitness or Anytime Fitness gyms, where it's $15 to $20 a month. So having that through, well, usually January, you might get through most of it without, but January, February, March, those are really key, because otherwise, if you've got big dreams for the spring and your running's going well, the weather potentially, and to a greater degree, the worse the weather is going to define some of your fitness and determine some of your end game success in the spring. And that's a shame on the one hand. Or you're going to get all stubborn and resolute and say, no, I'm all I'm going to run. I'm not going to let the weather do that. And you're going to go out when you really shouldn't, at least for certain types of runs. You can run in almost anything easy and slow, but if you're going to try a quality run in icy conditions, you're either going to not go at the right intensity because you're too cautious, or you're going to go hell or high water and you're going to flip up and break a hip. And that's going to be the season. So it's really smart. It's strategic to have access to a treadmill throughout the season. Okay. And if you do, as people are starting to do now, including myself, I've done a couple of treadmill workouts. It's a good idea when you do that edit of the title, make sure you use TM. So there's an indication it's a treadmill workout. If it's not automatic, often there's no map, so it's clear, but it wouldn't be a bad idea just to put TM in the title that you did it on a treadmill. And this is the other thing, don't use and don't assume it's ever right the information you're getting from your Garmin when you're on the treadmill. And I go so far to say, no matter how well you might have calibrated a foot pod to go with it, I know it might be close, but it's hardly ever accurate if you're going to change paces. You might get it right for one pace. It does for me. It's one middle pace. But if I run really slow, it overestimates my speed. If I run really fast, it way underestimates my speed. And that's the kind of workout you often do on a treadmill, because for safety, you're going to run fast on it when you can't run fast outside. So run the workout, schedule it by the treadmill console. Okay, that's how you set it up, and you have to trust, even though there's sometimes a little bit of variance, you have to trust that the treadmill's right. Run it that way by the treadmill console numbers, as opposed to trusting or relying on what your watch is telling you. Okay, for pacing, you can still, if it's close, it kind of averages out for the overall. It tells you about how far you went and about how fast, but you want specifics when you're doing workouts. So base it on the treadmill console. If you're not sure about how to convert workouts from minutes per K and kilometers to miles per hour, which is what most treadmills register, or the unit they're based in, no problem. Just let me know. I've developed a little like not so fancy, just pretty clear though, tool on Excel, and it allows you to quick convert or use a chart. So you can do that if you're relegated to the treadmill. Okay, so don't be afraid to do it, and have the tools in place to do it. One of my last things to mention, and then yeah, we're getting close. I've still got a few minutes. Is my railing against stop time. I've done this before on occasion. I want to make sure it's at least on your radar. Stop time, the differential between the total run time and the total elapsed time on generally outside runs, I would assume. That's the silent fitness or PB killer. Okay. Allow it, of course. I don't want you, no matter what, keeping running. You're in an urban environment and you're going to need to make stops. Allow it to happen, but be aware of it in the sense that, like a taxi running the meter, it's going, and I want to get going. I don't want to lollygag around, and attempt to minimize it, especially on key and biggie runs like OMPs, race paces, or even long runs, actually. So be careful about it. Be mindful of it. Try and keep it short. And then, so the golden rule, and I'll put this in one of our tips for the upcoming newsletter, is just so you know it ahead of time, golden rule. And I say this and I strive for this, and I admit I rarely achieve it, though I get close sometimes, and I'm always trying to, is on a run of less than an hour or up to an hour, you can take, the gold standard is 2 minutes of stop time differential. That way there's no real difference. You're getting everything out of your workout. If it's up to 2 hours, you get 3 minutes. If it's up to 3 hours, you get 4 minutes. That's not a lot of time over a 2 to 3 hour run. So just be mindful. That's the gold standard. And if you're close, you're still probably fine. But if you're 2 or 3 times that, if there's 8 or 10 or 15 minutes or 20, I've seen runs of 20 or 30 minutes stop time of some runners that I coach, that you really devalued the effort you were making. On one hand, you weren't getting the training stimulus, and you also are left with a faulty correlation of effort to pace and effort to output. So that when you finally, and you find out on the worst possible circumstance, the race at the end of the season, when you don't give yourself 20 or 30 minutes of rest time and expect to have the same effort. Okay, so just be mindful of that. And it's very easy to look and see it on how you're doing. You can check after on Strava or Garmin, what have you. Okay. Oh, and I mentioned at most groups this week on Hilliness, you'll see what for any hilly OMP, hilly long run, all kinds of things, hilly workouts, hilly reps. What is a hill of note, right? Per 2 kilometers. Best idea, rather than finding one hill that fits the bill and running up and down it or running a short loop that goes around and around it. You could if you had to, but I wouldn't recommend it for mental and emotional reasons. Probably your neighbors would think it's weird too. Find a route that's in an area that's generally hilly and has a bunch of different ones, and then try it. If you think it's hilly, try it for an OMP or an LSD, and then check it, like trust and verify. And what you're looking for, the gold standard of hilliness is 10 meters of elevation differential per kilometer. So if it's a 10K, you want 100 meters, roughly, plus or minus a bit, roughly 10 meters of differential elevation, and so on, toward 200 meters for a 20K or what have you. Okay, so 10 meters per 1K is a good, makes it a hilly, it qualifies as a hilly. So you can test and even go back and look at some of your hilly runs on Strava that you thought were hilly. Were they hilly? Maybe they were really hilly. And if so, like something, case in point, the Hellacious Journey Run we just ran, well, a number of us I could see here on Sunday near Hyde Park or in the West End. We had a couple of runners run that. Marco was here. I think I saw him. I don't know if Dan's here. But those guys were, I almost did it, but they went the whole distance. They did the whole route. And Dan, for one who did the whole thing, it was 420-ish meters for 21K. So it's 20 meters. It's twice as hilly as hilly. So the point there is you can see when we have a hilly versus flat, like Kelly was mentioning about what's slower OMP, hilly OMP versus flat. We ask, you're going to lose 10 or 15 seconds on a hilly route per K, right? It's genuinely hilly. And that's okay. But if it's really hilly, you should lose more. So allow for that. They have planned for that. Strive for that. We should have been losing 20 or 30 seconds because of that rule on the Hellacious Journey per K for the same effort as we would have had on flat ground. Okay, so have a hill consciousness and a little bit of a framework to work with. And a final reminder: take it easy out there. There's not a benefit to beating up every run, to always hitting your target. You want to kind of average out over under within the week, over under week by week. It's just be kind of playful, coax it out, let it happen as you go. Don't feel pressure to exceed your last run next week all the time. There's an ebb and a flow, and it's more about the consistency, keeping the volume regular, not having big gaps in your training. Keep the consistency, and for the most part, emphasizing easy running. There's only 1 or 2 times a week where it's a game on. Okay, for the most part, most of your running should be they should have a limiter, a governor on it. A tip would be for long runs. You know how it gives you a range in your plan now of it's about 30 seconds from fastest to slowest. The fastest you should go, the most aggressive you should be, is probably the very front end of that, or slower, but like no faster than the fast end of your recommended for your long runs. But more importantly, for all your other easy runs, your easy run, like straight easy recovery runs, all the easy running in other workouts, like the easy fartlek runs or the hill charge runs where you're just, or the warm-ups and cool downs or what have you, those should be strong. They should trend to the other side of the spectrum. They should be really not much faster than the slowest recommended range, which is a lot slower than your long run. Okay, so keep the emphasis, except for when we ask you to do a hill charge or a fartlek pickup. So really skew it, keep it relaxed for the most part throughout the week, and you will find you can do more comfortably and gain more volume, and that in the long game is going to do you a lot more good. Okay, so that would be a good one. Garmin's make mistakes. Don't get all hung up too much. I mean, big ones sometimes, but more frequently, very little ones that you may not notice or really realize. Technology, satellites, your unit itself sometimes. And even when everything's working perfectly, there are small errors that have to happen when it's around, the tall buildings and the big trees. There's small errors there. When you're in a tree cover, there's massive errors. Like it can be 30, 45 seconds per kilometer off. Okay, so don't worry if you're doing that. You have to just go by effort with that. But when you're not, when you're on the roads, know that there could be 2, 3, 4, 5 second differentials as well. Okay, so don't hold yourself accountable for every second. It's probably a good thing. All right. I know we're hitting our limit, so certainly cut out if you have to. I had one more little unit to mention. I'll take a quick stab at it just so it's on your your perspective and we'll get you out of here. I did promise to touch on the MDI Run Crew, long runs and themed runs, race paces, team races, stuff like that. I guess I'll just remind everyone, in case you use it, or inform anyone that didn't know, if you're a part of one of our in-person weekday coached training intensity run groups, you are a member. It's automatic in a way. You're just required, if you think of it that way. You're a member of the MDI Run Crew, and that comes with benefits, perks, including a free MDI Run Club team singlet. Comes with options to buy all kinds of other run gear at cost price from the supplier and the manufacturer. It's sponsored discounts and events and opportunities and offers through the season. We're retooling that part right now, I hope kind of post COVID, and we're working on a big one that I'll announce soon. But I see someone popping in. So yeah, that's coming off. And more on that later. And of course, season end parties and sellies and team events, relays, all kinds of fun things we do as a group. That all comes with it. And all we ask is there are some responsibilities and commitments. There are 3 of them, in fact, to attend at least one, and in some cases at most, but hopefully more, but at least one MDI Sunday run per month. Okay, that's the idea there. Often, if you can only do one, well, make it the race pace ideally. But if not, attend a different one to keep you. Never let a month go by without coming out for one. And if you absolutely can, then there's another sort of fallback option with social media that we ask you to help us out with to support the team and be a part of it vicariously, virtually. And that's one thing. Come to the run once a month. Do one volunteer contribution per season, 5 months. Do one, and that's either at volunteering at one of our MDI water stations like Sporting Life, or our cheer stations like Toronto Waterfront, or are coming out to help me, usually on a race pace. If you're not going to do it that week and you have a week, come out and help me with a water station and whatnot. Okay, or none of those, and support Start to Finish, the organization that supports underprivileged and disadvantaged youth via reading and running across Canada. Okay, that's our go-to charity that we support. I've always been part of that program for years. So one of those, that's your charity contribution. And then lastly, wear your team singlet at least Greater Toronto, Southern Ontario races. Okay, the more local ones. We'd love to see you wear it at international races. You know, the heart just beats an extra beat when I see that. But if there's a reason for an individual, like external international races, that you want to wear a special singlet, of course, wear it, but always let us know is what we ask. If you're not going to go in team color, let us know. Yeah, so I'm going to call it there because we've gotten there. There's not much more that I wanted to say. Yeah, I think we're close. Any other questions? Straight up, make sure you put it in the chat before you leave, because I will get to that. I'm going to scroll quick on the way out here. Yo, Marie, you got an early bird plan, so that's why you don't have the days of the week. You know what? I will retrofit your plan. I'm going to redo it on the new one, not redo it, the rest of it, so that's clear, like 80–90% of the others. Okay.
Okay. Are you calling them intensity workouts?
Now we're calling them all kinds of things now. We're calling them what they really are. So you'll see, it's easier and improved.
Okay.
So yeah, right. I will and I'll try and do a couple. I'm trying to do Raffies as well. So there's a few others, just a few that were before Christmas. The early bird Boston crowd that I wanted to get there. I see a question here. I might miss something. Oh no, maybe not. OMP, I can't see who that is. Ordinary mortal pace, glossary reminder. Check that out. There's a nuances as to how to do those, and there's also YouTube videos I've done too, so we can get it just right. Garmin watch, yeah. If you're using a Garmin watch, you probably should be using Garmin Connect. Oh, sorry, I didn't read the whole question. No, if you're using a Garmin watch, Strava is great. In fact, if I'm pushed against the wall, I'd say I probably prefer it because I'm on there 10 or 12 hours a day. So I'm more likely to see your workouts, even just happenstance, but I'm also more in tune to just use that system. I'm spending more time with it. So, yeah, Strava works great if you're on a Garmin, no problem there. And yes, it is this weekend. Race pace is a good segue to finish. Our first and only 2 more after this for the whole season. Of the race pace, the group race pace runs is this weekend, Sunday at West Toronto at the Canada Flag, 8 a.m. It's in the last newsletter. I'll send tomorrow just a 1-item reminder and ask that you maybe RSVP there, just so I have a sense of numbers for water substation supply that we'll try and supply you with, and also who's coming and how much direction signage I might need. It's a pretty straight shoot course. Oh, and I had that question come up. Yeah, how does that work for some of the newbies? What distance are we running? You are running roughly the distance that your plan calls for. Okay, you might massage that up a K or 2 at the most, or down 1, or to match those that you happen to fall in with around on pace, just for everybody's benefit. So you're running the most you can together. But yeah, if you're a half marathoner and it calls for 10K roughly in race pace, that's what you'll do. There might be someone out there doing 30K. Well, maybe, race pace, I doubt it. Or maybe someone's coming out to do a long run of 30. So there's different distances, but we're all on the same route, turning around roughly plus or minus a K at about halfway of our individual targets. Okay, that may not answer the individual question that someone asked me on an email, but I will also answer it independently. Do we have to? Oh, that's a good question. Last one here from FV, Frank, maybe? I can't read the name. Do we have to subscribe to Strava for you to see our workout notes? I don't believe so. No, I'm going to say no, but I'm not 100%. I'm 90% sure. In other words, the question there might be, do I need a Strava account? I mean, the paid subscription, the paid subscription. I don't think you do. I happen to have the paid one, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think with the non-paid, you get the basic functionality, and you can put comments in your runs, and it does a basic version of tracking historically. It just doesn't allow you to do your training log, like see your whole training log, like those that are in the subscription mode. Okay, so hopefully that at least gets started on that answer. Any other question? Oh boy. Oh, that's a good question. Did I miss one there? What's the May 27th back on track meet? Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Good point. I don't think I totally linked the Cabot Trail weekend when a lot of our crew will be away. This would be too fun a thing to miss because there's so many of you going to Cabot. I'll move that. It was just an idea I had. Originally I was thinking, off season, between seasons, but let most people get everything done. And then just as they're getting rolling again, we could do like a track meet, not full-fledged, but like an informal, somewhat, version of a track meet. Bring up the timing. We'd get to do the shorter stuff on a bit of a lark because it's off middle between seasons before we get going on anything else, to try a distance outside our comfort zone. We're rested, perhaps, probably because we're off season. Could we try a 400 meters? Could we try an 800 meters, a half mile? Could we do a metric mile, a 1500? Shorter distances, maybe up to 5K for those not quite comfortable. But yeah, focus on the short for people that generally, for the most part, focus on the longer. So that was my idea there. I just thought that'd be fun to put on the agenda and work toward cobbling together at the end there. Oh, late arrival. Say hi to Paul Heyer. Yeah, just as we're leaving, he's getting you. Yeah, okay. So I've kept you late by 10 minutes, so I apologize for that. Put anything else you got in there, or if you're more comfortable, drop me an email while I'm amassing any of the post notes. I am going to try and record. Well, I am recording this. I will work on putting it together for those that weren't around, just to cover the bases. But I know that was mostly useful, I hope, for newer runners. I know there was some overlap with what we have done before, and I apologize for some of those, but hopefully there was a couple of new items for those that have been with us for a while. Yeah, anyways, that's all I had, guys. Thank you for coming. Hopefully you got some good stuff out of that. And hopefully we'll see most of you, maybe not all, but most of you on Sunday. I think the little rough weather tomorrow, but I think it slowly gets better. So I think we'll be in good shape for Sunday for a good hard race pace, or if you want to do one of your easy long runs, you decide. The option's yours. The course will be together and we can all run kind of together. Okay, so thank you for coming. You can sign off now or stick around as I shut down, but yeah, good session. Sorry I was such a blabberman. Won't do that again.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Kevin.
Yeah,
Thank
Thanks.
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.